Hello everyone, and welcome back to my shop. Today we're going to get back on this 75 Corvette Stingray and this QuadraJet carburetor. If you watch the previous episode, you see where I did some repair work to this QuadraJet, and so now we're going to fire this dude up and see how it works. I've done some preliminary setups, and hopefully it'll do it. So anyway, stay tuned, and let's fine tune this QuadraJet carburetor and this 350 engine. Before we fire it up, I'll do a brief review of what I had to do. See this rod here? That was missing. A previous Bubba had removed that, thinking he would improve the operation of that carburetor, and actually it made it worse. So some people do that, thinking that they'll get better response out of the secondaries. And basically what you do is you lose control of it, and you get intermittent problems like this engine had, which was going down the road and it was just hesitating. And like I said, I've already put that rod on there before I pulled the carburetor and did a little test, and that did fix that problem. But anyway, Bubba had this missing. Bubba bent this arm. Let's move this cable here. He bent this arm here to where when you first started this engine and vacuum was applied to this pull down, it would open that choke wide open like it is now. So, which would mean it would stall 9 times out of 10 because it was too cold. It needs partial choke. And we'll show that here momentarily. And we'll go on the other side and I'll show you the other repair I had to do. All right. There should be another cast boss that sits right here on this side, and if you look, you can see the shiny where it busted off. That was the through pin that held this accelerator rod in is the only thing holding that piece on, I discovered. So I found this kit from QuadraJet parts, and I'll do a link in the description. And they've got this repair kit and this pin here that is actually Loctited into that one boss there, and it's not coming out, and it gets a new rod here. So because this lever is not coming off now, it will not come off. So in order to remove the top part of this carburetor, I want to keep him wide open. There's a little pin now in that linkage, and you can just take the linkage rod off and it'll lip right up. So it's a nice slick little repair. And the other thing I did is, while I had it apart, I put a new accelerator pump in it, and that cleared out a hesitation I had when I would nail it. I mean, I would get this little bit of a cough and then it would catch. That new pump has fixed that problem too. So anyway, let's set that choke and start this dude up and see what happens. All right, if all goes to plan, I'm gonna floor this twice, the throttle cable. It should set the choke and put this on fast idle. And so let's see what happens. You notice it did set the choke closed, and we should be on fast idle on the accelerator. I gave it 2 pumps, and we're gonna put the power back on here because this is my tach lead. All right, and let's start it and see what happens. If you hear a horn beep, well, I can't help it, just reading across. You notice the choke's barely, it's open just enough to idle. Now as the thermostat opens more, heats up and opens, it will open that more. Now I can bend this rod here to get it to kick it open more, but you notice it didn't hesitate and it's idling up faster. You can see it opening slowly. So let's let it idle. It's fast idle to the point where I think it will idle. Then I will drop, kick it down. All right, I'm going to attempt to kick it down. It should go just a hair slower. There's a lever keeping this rod closed. What that does is that will not allow those secondaries to open up while this engine's still cold. As you can see, the choke is not fully open yet. So right now, if I were to drive this, it would not engage the secondary two barrels. It would just run off the primary, which is what it does most of the time anyway. That's about the mid-speed RPM right there. See the choke almost fully open. Not quite. It's still cold. If I was to show the inside temperature, it'd still be cold. Let's see how it responds. Now, my normal, once it heats up more, it'll idle at around, maybe around between 8 to 850. My tach jumps around a bunch here, but you can see now my choke's fully open and it is idling. If I put it in gear now, it will be about 600 RPM or lower. I want this to idle in gear at around 650, but it won't get to that until it gets fully warmed up. Right now it'll drop about 150 to 200 RPM when I put it in gear, but this is where I want it. All right, it's taken it a couple minutes, and I'm going to show now the stop is now moved totally off the secondary throttle plate. And now I'll show you the operation now. It will allow the secondaries to work. It's been, maybe a minute, about 2 minutes. Well, all right. I guess some of you all may have noticed this fine chrome plate right here, and what that is a EGR block-off plate. Now, before I pulled this carburetor in the previous episode and did the work to it, I actually was troubleshooting a vacuum leak, and a massive vacuum leak, and that's when I discovered that this rod was missing and I had a problem with the accelerator arm here. But that was not causing, my vacuum leak. What I discovered was, number one, right here, this is supposed to be the vacuum controller for the EGR valve. There should be some vacuum valve hooked here. Vacuum would come off the carburetor, ported, and then it would come and it would operate the EGR valve. Well, as you can see, a previous Bubba has disabled that permanently. I mean, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of money for a smog control, if you know what I mean. So what I was doing to troubleshoot my vacuum leak was, stage one. the hillbilly method. With an engine fully warmed up and idling, cup over your primary circuit. Just cup over it. All right. If the idle dies or starts to die, you don't have a vacuum leak. If the idle picks up, you've got a vacuum leak. So to isolate it, get a can of well, what I use is either carb cleaner or brake cleaner. Either one. They're both flammable, so you got to be careful. But with the engine warmed up and idling, you spray around. I spray it around the intake manifold. All right, then I spray it around directly around specific parts of the carburetor. And I found that my idle would pick up in this general area right here. All right. So I decided that, well, that EGR, since I can't control it anyway, we're going to put this EGR, go get a EGR block off plate. And so I went and got that, and I went and got a new carburetor gasket. And I tell you, finding a gasket locally for a spread bore 4-barrel is not easy to find anymore. All anybody locally carries is the square bore. But I did find one at a AutoZone in the southern part of town. I had to drive to get it. Nobody had it local. But anyway, so when I pulled the carburetor off, that's when I discovered the source of my vacuum leak. And if you might notice, I've got 2 studs installed here. Well, basically that should be 2 bolts that bolt the carburetor down to the carburetor. Well, what the previous Bubba did, either the same one that busted the EGR control or another one, he had stripped this one out right here. I mean, this was just loose. And of course that was tight, but this was loose, and this corner was the source of my vacuum leak. So what I did is I ran taps back down through it, and I got my carburetor studs here, and then I put some Loctite on them, secured them down, and it's working great. That is when I discovered that I had this missing rod, and I also had a problem here with my accelerator pump. So I knew I had to pull that carburetor again and do some work. So I've kind of got you caught up. And we all know that that fine chrome plate there has got to be adding some horsepower, right? All right. I didn't show it, but I also did a tune-up to it, and I'm going to show you some of the things I found here in my tune-up. But one thing, see, I've got headers on. These are long headers, which of course helps and improves the performance of this engine. And for those that don't know, in '75, the smog controls really took over Detroit and everything, even being imported. That's when all the main rules hit, and they smogged this engine down so bad that it's embarrassing to say what horsepower it was. Well, with all the smog removed and this carburetor working the way it should be, I might be getting some at least halfway decent horsepower out of there. But anyway, what I wanted to point out was I put new plug wires on it, but those are new plugs, and I went with the 45 RTs, okay? And they are a pain to get to. You cannot do this on a hot. You gotta wait till the engine's cold, and because you're going to be using a wrench to get to some of these. The other side is just as bad. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And I found all kinds of issues into the HEI distributor. To tell you the truth, the plugs didn't look bad, but I had a bad plug wire. And what I found in that HEI distributor is it's just amazing that this engine even ran. And it ran good enough for me to even, on my test drive, to buy the dadgum thing. But yeah, it's running pretty good now. So I'm going to show you some of the things I found wrong with the HEI. Basically, the rotor button and the cap were totally wore out and burnt. So anyway. All right, here are some of the old parts I pulled off. Look at this rotor button. Now look how it's been arcing and sparking there at the center conductor. And on the back side, there may be some carbon trails, but it's definitely had a problem up there. And here's the original distributor cap. Now I forgot what they call that, low resistance contact, coil contact that comes out through that hole there. Well, it was wore down into that hole. So in order for this engine to be firing like it was arcing from there to there, all right, and that's why it's burnt. You can see the burn all around there and the burn all around there. I had a spare HEI distributor that I was going to put on my Chevy truck, but I ended up putting a Petronics unit on there that I'm very happy with, and I think I'll do a review on it. But anyway, I took the that low resistance contactor out of there and put it in the brand new distributor cap that I installed, and went from there. The air cleaner gasket was tore up. Here's where the end on that plug was just so loose it just fell right off, and the gasket was shot. All right, I'm going to put a dot. I think I've got my choke exactly where I want it, so I'm going to put a little dot on it. The housing's busted a little bit right here, so I don't know if there was graduations there too, but I'm going to put a little white mark to show that that's where I want it for now, and I can use that for a reference. I'm not 100% sure that this car came with an electric choke originally. I'm saying that for a couple reasons. Number one, it's got this air intake port here to get heated air into the choke. Right now, that's just plugged, okay? I just got it plugged. And if I had the stock manifolds on here, there would be possibly a tube going down to get heat off the manifolds, all right? Because there's no place on the intake manifold unless this manifold is also been replaced. I think it's OEM, but again, I don't know. It looks OEM, but it is a dual plane, and I don't know that they had a dual plane when it was stock. But to get back on subject, number one, you had that hot air intake to it. Number two, this is the fresh air output through the air cleaner to provide air to go down to the heat sink to be heated and then in turn introduced to the choke. All right, so that's item number two that leads me to believe that this possibly did not have an electric choke. And the third thing I run into is a splice. Let me move this out of the way here. How this gets keyed power, all right? Now, right here, I've got it taped, all right? Well, it's behind there. All right. I tell you, recording with the phone is just, can be a pain sometimes. We'll get a light. All right. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a red wire. It's black coming out of the firewall, and that's the red wire that goes and provides 12 volt to the HEI. Now, you generally want a full 12 volt to an HEI or any electronic ignition that you use. That does not look like a factory splice down there. Let me see if I can do it. See right here, behind all that? That does not look like a factory splice, and that's not a red wire. This is there was a wire spliced to here that was providing power, switched power, keyed power to the thermostat. I don't believe that was factory. Again, I don't know. So I looked and searched. I wanted to find a keyed 12 volt source. I decided that, that thermostat would be putting a load and drawing that 12 volt down going to the HEI, which would affect its high voltage output. You want a full 12 volt to an HEI. You don't want it being parallel. You want it on its own circuit. That's what I've learned over the years anyway. So, searching around, I discovered this right here via my schematics. And see, this is an automatic. This has got the Turbo Hydromatic 400 automatic. And this is where a lockout relay would go for the straight stick, the 4-speed transmission. In other words, if you didn't have the clutch depressed or in neutral, one or the other, this relay would keep the engine from starting, okay? Well, with an automatic, you don't need this. But I discovered that one side, there is a keyed 12 volt right here, a switched on. Whenever you turn the key switch on, you get a 12 volt applied on a terminal here, okay? So what I did is I decided to use that to provide the 12 volt to my electric thermostat. Again, you know, I would think that you wouldn't have a splice like that, a non-factory splice, but from the factory, paralleled off the HEI unit to provide power to an electric choke. So that makes me believe that this engine originally did not have it. Those of you all who may have a 75 or whatever years are associated to it, maybe 76, maybe 74, I don't know. You might correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going under the assumption now that thermostat, that choke coil here, the electric choke, is not OEM to that carburetor, and it's been adapted. All right. So anyway, but it works good now. Anyway, but like I say, when you're troubleshooting intermittent problems, you know, I had that surge while cruising. I thought, well, it could be spark, and it could be electric, and working through all that, getting that out of the system, you know, I isolated it down to the lack of this rod right there. This rod keeps this from, it gives it a nice smooth cruise. I don't care if it's 30 mile an hour, I don't care if it's 90 mile an hour. It'll just smoothly cruise. All right. All right, this aftermarket air cleaner, I even found a problem with it. It was interfering with this, with the arm here on the secondary air flap. All right, and it's got the indentations on it to supposedly clear it, but it wasn't clearing it enough. So what I did is I found in my stash, I found this was off of a smaller 4-barrel air cleaner. All right, so we're gonna put him on there. He's like a standoff. Well, first off, where's my gasket? We'll put that on there. We'll put him on there like that, and he'll stand him off just enough to clear any obstruction. All right, and there we go. So what I want to do, I want to do my final tune on this. I want to do it with the air cleaner on. So I know I got to bring him down a little bit. That center rod was just big enough. And we got a little bit more. A little bit more. We'll clean him up good, but I want to do my final, my fuel air and my idle setting with the air cleaner on. All right. Okay, we're going to do a hot restart test. This that got up the temperature. Of course, I shut it down and I put the air cleaner on. I've showed you all some other stuff. Now I'm going to attempt to start it. I am not going to touch the gas pedal at all. I'm just going to try to start it with the key. Here we go. Deal. Now I'm going to give it a little gas to pick up a little bit. There you go. Now I need to, what I need to do now is, since I've got the air cleaner on, I'm going to I'm going to let it warm up again, and I'm going to fine tune the carburetor. Picking it up good, but it's right at 12 degrees before top dead center and idle. All right. Yeah, it's not picking it up good. All right. I believe we've got it running pretty good now. It's not idling as smooth as I want, and I'm afraid that it may be something else. I don't think it's electric. I don't think it's the plug wires, or carburetor. I think it may have something to do with perhaps needing to adjust the valves or something. We may get on that and do that here one day in the future. But right now, it's doing pretty good. And what I need to do next is what I don't want to do, what I put off to as much as I can, but that's to crawl underneath that rear end, drain out. Well, actually, you got to suck out the old rear end 8090 lube and put some new in, and also put some friction modifier because it is a limited slip positive traction. So anyway, well, we'll just go ahead and stick a fork in it for now. I almost want to put it down and take it out for a spin because we got one of them rare warm days out here. It's probably in the low 50s, but it looks like it's going to rain. Anyway, I'm trying to motivate myself to crawl underneath it. It's got so much it needs done, you know, it's pathetic. But then again, you know, that's what I get when I got it. So, hope everything's going good with you and yours. Everything's going good here. Can't complain. And I do complain some, but then again, I realize I just got to take care of the business. So, that's that. So, have a good one, and I hope to see you around on the next one. See ya.